Hello, hello. Good evening, and welcome to Songbook Watch Party. I'm Dominic Farinacci. It's great to see all of you, and now we're here on Zoom. We're also on YouTube and at our website, songbookwatchparty.com. Thank you so much for joining all of us. I'm going to play something to get started here. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good to see everyone. So this week is a special week. This is actually our 15th Songbook Watch Party show. We started April 1st, right? And we've learned quite a bit through this process, and we've had all kinds of wonderful artists from all over the world. And tonight, joining us is a wonderful pianist, joining us from the West Coast, Tamir Hendelman. And before that, we have also had the pleasure of welcoming a wonderful trumpeter and producer and composer and vocalist, Linda Briseño, known as Ella Brick. So before we bring these two special guests on, I'd like to say hello to our resident scholar and musician, Lauren Schoenberg, who is the founder of the National Jazz Museum in Harlem. He's a multi-Grammy award-winning writer, and he was my teacher at the Juilliard School back in the early 2000s. He's been a dear friend and mentor of mine. Lauren, so glad we've been spending actually more time together in quarantine separately than we ordinarily do these days. So good to see you, man.
Well, it's good to see you too. You've been around the world and back 8 times. So, I never knew exactly when to call you or how to get you or what to do. But we have been spending a lot of time, and that leads me to a question, which is, as you mentioned last week, we are taking advantage of the time to watch The Sopranos, episode by episode. Right. That's a lot of fun. And the theme song that you have on your show, it's not exactly like The Sopranos necessarily, but it has kind of like a beat to it, And I'm wondering, what is that theme song that we're hearing?
Yes, a great song by Cream, Sunshine of Your Love. So I've always loved playing that. Actually, going back, speaking of The Sopranos, going back to Goodfellas, one of my favorite all-time movies. There's an incredible scene there where Sunshine of Your Love comes on with Robert De Niro. And that was kind of the inspiration for kind of reimagining that. So I did that on my last album on short stories. And it's great. Christian McBride, whose birthday it is today, he's playing on that, and Steve Gadd and a few others. So, but yeah, the theme song from The Sopranos, man, is great. Right.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I made about 2 or 3 albums with Christian's big band. One of them actually won a Grammy Award, actually. And my own big band albums, which I made, back in the 80s and the 90s, did pretty well. I mean, they never won an award or anything like that. They made some motion. And I remember after one of my albums came out, I got a telegram from the Grammy Foundation. They said, "Congratulations, your album just went tin." But anyway, all kidding aside, it's great to see you, and I'm looking forward to this evening's show very much. I thought I would just play about 8 bars of a song, just to up the ante there, or whatever they say.
All right. Yeah, man. It's great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. That's beautiful, man. And if you don't mind, I want to show everyone this cool video you did. And I think it's so special because I know it wasn't until just a couple months ago that a lot of us got into creating these virtual videos and these different kinds of collaborations. And when you showed me this the other night, right before we were watching The Sopranos, man, I said, I'd love to actually show our audience. I love it, and it's a beautiful song. What is this called again?
It's called "Thanks a Million," and it was part of a tribute I did to a great guy named Jack Bradley, who founded the New York Jazz Museum back in the 1970s, and was a big influence on me. And he's well into his 80s now, and so a bunch of us put together little tributes to Jack. So I just thought I'd play about 2 minutes of his song, and that's about it.
I love it. Good. Check it out. Yes, that's so cool, man. I love it. And I've never heard that song. We were listening to the Louis Armstrong recording. It is incredible, man. His inflection and I mean so much in that time in the mid 30s, right? When he recorded that, and just that's some of my favorite Louis Armstrong, specifically from the early to mid 30s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Cool.
Thanks, Lauren. And for those of you who have joined us before, you've seen Lauren and you've seen our next guest, Evelyn Wright. Evelyn, hello.
Hello.
Yes,
Hello.
okay. All right. Good to see you. Good to see you. So,
Good to see you.
yes. So, Evelyn is one of our true incredible legends of the Cleveland music scene here. I grew up listening to her and admiring her, and she's in part who inspired me to get into this music. She's a Tri-C Jazz Fest legend, actually in the technical sense, right? And this series, of course, is brought to you by, in part by Tri-C Jazz Fest. So we're really glad to have Evelyn here as a resident guest. And Evelyn, I love you. I love your music, your voice.
I love you, man.
Yeah.
Come on. Thank you. I'm humbled.
It's so funny. We're all spending much more time together these days, even though
Yeah.
we're not together, and that's nice. Yeah.
That's right.
And I know our mutual friend, Ernie Krivda, who has had some challenges over the past couple of years. But
Yes.
he's on the road to recovery, and he's another legend and staple of our scene. And
Yes, he is.
earlier during Soundcheck, we talked about this song, I Wish You Love, which I just
Ye-
played for him a few days ago.
Is that ironic? Oh, wow. Well, I'm going to sing it.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. I wish you bluebirds in the spring to give your heart a song to sing and then a kiss. But more than this, I wish you love. And in July, a lemonade to cool you in some leafy glade. I wish you health, but more than wealth, I wish you love, my praying heart. And I agree that you and I will always be so with my best, my very best. I set you free. I wish you shelter from the storm, a cozy fire to keep you warm. But most of all, when snowflakes fall, I wish you love. But most of all, I wish you love.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much for that, Evelyn.
Oh, you're
And
welcome. Thank you.
hearing your voice always, I know I tell you time and time again, it just brings back so many wonderful memories from when I was 12 and 13 years old coming to
I
Club
remember.
Isabella. Yeah.
I never told you this story. When I first heard about you, I met your mom. I was playing at a place called Hickerson's.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know if you remember this. And then she told me about you. She said, well, I have a son, he plays trumpet. I'm like, okay, here we go, But when I heard you, I said, he's the real deal Holyfield for sure. Oh yeah, I remember. Oh yes, that's how I heard about you.
Before I was listening to jazz, I was listening to Vanilla Ice.
Oh well, we all go through our segments,
When I started to hear live music, though, I said, and especially hearing you and so many wonderful artists
Oh.
here in Cleveland, that's the power in your voice and your artistry. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you.
So this is a really cool thing to platform to bring all different kinds of artists from literally all around the world together and all different kinds of musical experiences. It's not like genre focused, right? We've had such a wide variety of artists. And tonight we'd like to welcome our first guest, who we played together a couple of years back at the New York Botanical Gardens. She played on my Rhapsody performance, and I got to hear her play and hear her beautiful voice, and then started to check out her music. A couple of years later, she ended up winning a couple Grammy Awards, Latin Grammy Awards, for her wonderful work in production and all the great artistic gifts she brings. She's originally from Venezuela. She's been really active in terms of bringing music and important social issues together, which is so important and incredibly important, especially during this time. And love everything that she stands for musically and personally. And we're glad to welcome here for the first time to Songbook Watch Party, Linda Briseño, known as Ella Brick. Hello, hello.
Oh, Dominic, I feel so humbled. Thank you so much for inviting me to this great initiative. You always are so professional. Everything that you do is so beautiful. Your music, the sound that comes out of your trumpet. I love you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad you're with us. And Linda, if you don't mind, I just want to play a clip from that beautiful song that you wrote and produced, 11, that you won the Grammy Award for. Do you mind if we share just a moment of that?
Not at all.
Great. So check this out.
Pertenecemos a algún lugar lleno de luces en una ciudad. Pertenecemos a algún lugar lleno de luces en una ciudad. Somos dos almas. Dos almas solas, solo esperando volverse a encontrar. ¿Será que hay alguien que me pueda?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Thank
Beautiful.
you.
And for all who are watching this after the show, check out that video on YouTube. It's really special. And Linda, I'm just curious, because you have so many different musical influences happening. And the first time I heard you, I had no idea about this side of your artistry. And I know we share a love for a lot of the same trumpet players and the vocabulary that we kind of draw from. What I notice about you is that you're able to kind of bring all of these different musical worlds together. And I'm just curious, how much did growing up in Venezuela, how did that impact your musical development?
Well, that's a great question. First of all, I grew up in a very musical family. My dad is a jazz drummer. My uncle is a saxophonist that lived in New York for many years. And I kind of just love music since I grew up. I also was part of El Sistema, which is a great program that existed in Venezuela. It still exists to bring music and great education, music education to people from every background, kids from 2 years old to people from any age. And I grew up in that background. First of all, I started with classical music, and after, when I was a teenager, I decided to expand my wings. I cannot tell you, my dad is a huge fan of Earth, Wind and Fire, of R&B, of soul music. Being in Venezuela, you won't expect this from a Latina, but it actually impacted my life in many ways. And by the time I was doing jazz professionally, I decided that I wanted to, show the world other parts of me as a musician. I wanted to show my production side, my songwriting skills. But most of all, I feel like I just wanted to be able to be a storyteller through my music. I feel like there's nothing else that connects us as artists that stories. That's how we connect with each other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you for that. And listening to this song and so many other songs that you've put together, certainly that storytelling aspect, not only through the music, but also the visual storytelling. And I'm just curious, your music videos have a real kind of distinct production quality to them, and I really love the storytelling aspect you do through the visuals. So I'm just curious, when you put these videos together, do you create the whole storyboard for it?
Well, for the case of 11, I kind of I got inspired by the Chet Baker movie. We got very similar scenes with the filmmaker. We had the pleasure to work with Frankie Turiano, which is a wonderful filmmaker that graduated from the New School as well as myself. And for the other videos that are available on YouTube, I was able to direct animated video that is kind of like a short film that tells my story as an immigrant. But yes, I'm kind of conceptualizing every single thing that I do, because I'm a control freak. First of all, I like to have control over everything. Second of all, I love film. It's one of my biggest passion after music, and I want to be able to connect with an audience visually and make sure that everything that comes with the music is excellent as the music aspect.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Before we kind of move on from the Grammy piece, and I know we were texting earlier, I said, which Grammy award did you say? Actually, I won 2. I said, sorry, I can't keep up with all of them. I apologize. But I just want to play this clip. I can't imagine how special this clip is for you. I pulled it from your website, if that's okay. That moment when you actually did win the Grammy, I think it's really cool to see. Right.
Sure.
Check it out. Yeah.
El Latin Grammy es para Linda Briseño.
That's pretty awesome. I'm just curious, what did that feel like, and how has that kind of set up your next steps,
Well, I wasn't expecting it at all. I was nominated next to the best producers in the world, although it was like a Latin category. I feel like it was an honor to be surrounded by them. But also, I was the first female ever to win in the history of the Grammys, both American and Latin Grammys. And I feel like the most important thing about this award, it transcends my person and the work that I did. It just brings visibility to other females and the issues that are currently happening in the music industry, which is that there are not enough spaces for female engineers and producers. And this award bring that conversation coming out for the first time in the music industry. And to me, it was a pleasure to be part of that somehow. And I'm so excited that now I'm seeing every single female producer and engineer, having a space where they can, show their work and, keep doing what they do and what they love.
Yes, yes. Thank you for paving the way forward on that. It's very, very important. We're really grateful.
And yes, it was good also for my career. It was,
Yeah.
I was never the same, and I will never be the same after that. It
Well,
changed
brought
my
you the
life.
Songbook Watch Party, right? I mean,
All right.
better than that. Yeah.
Yes.
So now to some trumpet nerd stuff. So I know we were working on this song, El Cumanes, right? Am I pronouncing that
El
correct?
Cumanés. El Cumanés.
El Cumanes. Okay, good. You have your horn there?
Yeah, I have it here.
Okay, so can you play just part of it? And I'm going to play part of it as well. But for those of you who are tuning in, this is a song that she passed to me a couple weeks ago, and we talked about maybe collaborating on it. I think we're going to work on something down the road, right? I love the melody. It's such a soulful melody. You said it's a mandolin melody originally?
Yeah, it's a mandolin melody originally from Morocho Fuentes, which is a Venezuelan composer.
Uh-huh.
And it's the first time somebody transcribed the music. I didn't do it, but a good friend of mine did it. And what is here is just amazing.
Okay, so if you don't mind, I'm going to play it first because I know the concept of this is like for me to do it in my own way and you to do it in your own way. I want to play mine first and get it out of the way, okay? Because I know when you start playing, it's going to take off, right? So I'm going to kind of like slow it down and like not play it exactly in time. But check out this melody. It's such a beautiful melody. And it reminds me a lot of my favorite trumpet players. Like I keep thinking of like actually Booker Little and I think of Charlie Shavers and all these great trumpet players that, in jazz music that, anyway, the vocabulary.
Yeah, you let me know when I finish, okay?
Yeah.
Because it's a very long song.
Oh yeah, we'll just do that first half part.
Okay.
So, okay, cool, great. Actually, I'll just point so we'll go back and forth. Okay.
Okay.
I'm reading the music here.
Very good.
Oh, hopefully. Yes, all right. And then just that last part, that's great. That's great. So that last one, so now at the beginning of the melody, could you play it in that straight time like you played it for me first? Just check it out.
Oh, the first part?
Yeah, just that first part. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, all right.
Woo!
That's so cool. I can't wait to get that together. I've been driving my neighbors nuts trying to get it together. The damn dog keeps barking.
Me
But
too.
yeah, yeah.
We have to record this, and I want
Yes.
to record it with you. Definitely.
Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds great. So
Thank you.
before we get to the featured piece that that the two of us did together, I'd like to just play this clip. Linda, this is from you playing on your balcony during the I mean, just a few weeks ago, right? The one that CNN picked up, and how how different musicians in a community are kind of enjoying and coming in together on the music just on their own, being separated, right?
Yes, yes. Yeah, I was super depressed when all this stuff started happening, and I bring my trumpet out to the window, and it turned out to a blessing to get to know my community very well and to lift them up. Now, after all this is almost coming to an end, a lot of people who were sick in the buildings are now coming out, and they're thanking because they were hearing the trumpet, although they could not move. They were, infected with COVID, and now they're better. And that's one of the things that really makes me happy. So I'm happy that you're sharing that with everybody. Music is
Right.
healing.
Absolutely, absolutely. So here it is from a couple weeks back. Check it out. Yeah. That's so cool. Thank you for that. So much of your music, and I follow your post on social media, and so much of your music is really integrated into social causes and community things. I'm just curious, how important is it for you to bring together these important social causes with our music and with our arts, and specifically and pertaining to your experience in growing up in Venezuela, and then also kind of bringing it full circle to the challenges that we're dealing with today?
Well, as I was mentioning, Emmett, this earlier today, I'm part of two minorities. I'm a female. Well, we're not a minority, but we're kind of like, we've been going through a lot throughout history, and I'm a Latina. So to me, as an immigrant, I'm very familiar with the kind of things that we experience, especially in the context of Venezuela. Living in a communist country that is, exploiting people and doesn't respect human rights, is one of the things that inspires me to keep doing what I'm doing and to be an activist and to stand whenever the things are not okay. And now, as a Latina living in New York, as an immigrant, I feel like my role is still important, because we need to use our platforms to walk with those who doesn't have a voice or who are suffering or struggling. I owe so much to the African American community. I'm actually, thanks to them, I'm a musician today. If we weren't for Aretha Franklin, for Ray Charles and Louis Armstrong, and the contributions that Slave and many of African Americans did for myself, I wouldn't be a musician today. So I feel like, how can you be an artist and not reflect the times that you're living it's one of the phrases that Nina Simone used to say it, and to me it's key to keep doing that and use my platform to talk about those issues.
I have a question for you. Many years ago, back in the 90s, I went to Caracas, and they asked me to come down and to conduct there was kind of like a national youth jazz orchestra at that time. And Jack Brownstein was the guy who put it together. And I spent some time down there, and I realized, just like in all countries, there was a real jazz scene there for many, many years. And I'm just wondering, while we have this opportunity to be talking with you, we talk about Louis Armstrong and the Chet Baker film and all those things, but who are a couple of names of some of the greats of Venezuelan jazz who we should know about? And maybe when we're done with the podcast, we can go look up on Google or listen to some music. Are there some comparable figures?
Yes, definitely. And I'm proud to say that those comparable figures are part of the new generation. One of my biggest, I'm one of the biggest fan of my good friend Gabriel Chacarji, which is a 25-year-old boy that grew up in Venezuela doing amazing jazz, and now he just put out his first record, and it's beautiful because he's mixing Afro Venezuelan rhythms with traditional jazz. And what he's doing is just amazing. Also, I can mention the work of Juan Angel Esquivel, which is an amazing guitarist. He just released music with another good friend of mine. I mean, like Venezuela, especially Caracas, has history of jazz. Alvaro Falcón, another wonderful blues guitarist. Biela da Costa, an amazing vocalist. And it's kind of like a little Brazil of great musicians. Caracas, that's how I describe it, a little Brazil, because every single musician that comes from it has their own story, their different backgrounds. You can find quality music coming from every corner.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren, for that.
Sure.
Great. Well, we're excited to debut our collaboration here on Songbook Watch Party with pianist Matisse Picard. And you notice a lot of musicians we're working with are in New York, don't have access to a tuned piano, but that's okay. And that's beautiful. I mean, to a tuner to tune the piano. And that's okay because that's part of the specialness of this kind of unique moment. So Matisse, I love his soulful playing, what he brings to it. And Linda, this was a fun collaboration. So we'd like to present to you a Bésame Mucho. Here it is.
Bésame mucho, como si fuera esta noche la última vez. Bésame, bésame mucho, que tengo miedo a perderte y no verte después. Bésame, bésame mucho, como si fuera esta noche la última vez. Oh, bésame, bésame mucho, que tengo miedo a perderte y no verte después. Quiero tenerte muy cerca, mirarme en tus ojos, verte junto a mí. Piensa que tal vez mañana yo ya estaré lejos, muy lejos de aquí. Bésame, bésame mucho, como si fuera esta noche la última vez. ojos verte junto a mí. Piensa que tal vez mañana yo ya estaré lejos, muy lejos de aquí. Bésame mucho, como si fuera esta noche la última vez. Ay, bésame, bésame mucho, que tengo miedo a perderte y no verte después. Que tengo miedo a perderte y no verte después.
Yes.
That was fun.
Yeah, that came out all right.
You
Good.
sound so good, man.
Thank
Why
you.
you're so talented?
Yeah,
so talented?
I don't know. That's for another episode. We'll dedicate next week to that. Thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your time with us and your wonderful artistry, and look forward to connecting with you real soon.
Thank you, Dominic, and thank you to Evelyn, to everybody involved. Thank you, Lauren.
All right. Great. And a special thank you again to Tri-C Jazz Fest as our lead sponsor, and to All About Jazz, who does great work in supporting us, and also Jazz Corner is fabulous. Nighttown, this is a Cleveland-based production. Nighttown has been really invaluable to helping to build this series, and also the Bop Stop at the Music Settlement, Cleveland, two wonderful venues here in our hometown of Cleveland. Great. So we're excited to welcome to the stage, the virtual stage, and he might be my favorite vocal piano accompanist on the planet. So incredible. And to hear his band leading and to hear his compositions and the soul and the work that he's done across his own trio and his own groups, also with, Diana Krall and with Paul McCartney and with the Clayton Hamilton Jazz Orchestra back since 2001, and his work with Barbra Streisand. It goes on and on. He's joining us from the West Coast. So glad to have him here on Songbook Watch Party. Check out this quick clip of Tamir Hendelman. And swinging. Tamir.
Dominic, so great to see you. Man, I love that you're doing this. This is bringing the community together, inspiring everyone in this time. It's great to see you.
Oh, thank you, Tamir. So glad you're with us here on the show, and I'm glad we can reconnect. I think the last time we played together was maybe in LA at Vibrato, right? In Bel Air.
That's right. Yeah, and then the Tri-C Festival when we were honoring Tommy Lee Puma. So yeah, it's great.
Mm-hmm. And I know we have a mutual friend in Tommy Puma, who unfortunately passed a few years back, but I know both of us had gotten to work with him over the years, and he's a special guy. I love all the albums that you're a part of, and I love your band leading, Tamir, and yeah, thank you so much for joining us. So I'm just curious, so Linda grew up in Venezuela. You were born in Tel Aviv, grew up in Israel, right? And so I'm just curious, kind of on that similar note, how do you think of all the different experiences that you've had over the years, and how do you think the music that you heard growing up has impacted your you're playing?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was exposed to all kinds of music as a child. Oliver Twist, the musical, Count Basie Big Band, hearing Paul McCartney on MTV, but then also going to hear Chick Corea live, hearing Bobby McFerrin, and then all the musicians in Israel. A lot of them are, they bring that rich. It's like kind of like in jazz, where you have a mix of all these different cultures from North Africa, from Eastern Europe. My grandmothers would sing songs around the house, so it's just kind of big musical melting pot, you could say.
And that certainly all comes through in your music. I'd love to hear, and I know you got the good setup, which is wonderful. I'd love to hear you play something live. I know you're talking about one of your original compositions, right?
Yeah, why don't I play this tune that I wrote when I first joined Jeff Hamilton's trio? He asked me to write a tune with a certain tempo, and I said, why don't we do a tribute to great soulful pianist Benny Green, who used to play with Jeff in Ray's trio, Ray Brown. So this is called Benissimo.
Great. And
Italian, but
and just to say, one of my favorite trios is that trio with you and John and Jeff. Man,
oh man,
wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay, check it out. Fantastic. And the sound of the piano, I think that's the best piano sound we've had on the show so far. Thank you for your diligent setup. And great, great. So I'm curious. There's that side of your artistry and the side of your artistry in terms of supporting, complimenting vocalists. And I know, listening to you, the work you've done, with Diana Krall and on the Paul McCartney album and with Barbara Streisand. I know that great night at the Village Vanguard. I'm just curious, with all these different experiences that you've had, does anything in particular kind of stand out in terms of working with specific vocalists?
When I came back from school and started playing around LA, I just kind of decided to work with some vocalists, and I found this little restaurant that had a duo gig. It was just piano and voice. And I ended up working with a lot of different singers, and each person would bring in a book about this big, like 400 songs in their keys. And I'd find myself doing these tunes that I've heard instrumentally, but I'd never really heard the lyrics of. And every person would sing them in such a different way. So it could be very soulful or very ethereal or just, finding different meaning in those lyrics. And it just made me realize that you gotta really not just play the chords, not just play the tune, but really play for that vocalist that you're playing with. Because it's like a collaboration between the piano and the lyrics and the vocalist and the composer, and it all comes together, so.
And Evelyn, I'm just curious, you there? Yes?
Here we go. Yes.
I'm just curious. So, as a vocalist, what do you look to you? What is a great accompanist? And I know so many wonderful pianists weren't necessarily in that vein, right? To you, what are the qualities do you look for as a vocalist in terms of the pianist?
Well, I look for sensitivity and just it's a conversation that we're having with each other, and we're talking back and forth. So it's just the beauty of just complimenting me, and hopefully I'm complimenting him also. But sensitivity is very important to me. Yes.
Yeah, and that sensitivity, I know, Tamir, about this collaboration that we did together. I have to say it was the most difficult collaboration that I've done since I started doing this watch party thing. So let's just briefly kind of set it up, right? So we share a love for Miles Davis, who just had a birthday a few days back, and I know you had a great experience with Jimmy Cobb, who was a wonderful drummer in some of the iconic Miles Davis bands from back in the day, and has done all kinds of things throughout the decades. And unfortunately, he just passed a few days ago as well. So I know you had a special relationship, experience with Jimmy as well, right?
Well, I met him during that Barbra Streisand concert at the Vanguard. He was in the audience, and then a couple of years later, I got to play with him together with Roberta Gambarini, wonderful vocalist, originally from Italy, who lives in New York. And it was magic. Miles used to say about him that he would just float. He said, "Just do your thing, Jimmy, float." And it just felt like that. Like whole bandstand just kind of floated off, just brought everybody's playing to another level. So me and you got together and we said, let's do a little tribute to Miles. And of course, the way he collaborated with Gil Evans, those 3 albums they did together was just something else. So I guess you can tell them more about what we chose, right?
Yes. Sketches of Spain, right? So now, just to put this in context for everyone tuning in here, with the Songbook Watch Party, usually call up an artist, we talk about possible songs, and we talk about the form of the song, and it's usually just, very straightforward, usually in one time signature, and no open or rubato loose sections, right? It's got to be really tight because of the way that we're kind of collaborating here through the online platform. So leave it to Tamir to give me a series of mini panic attacks to try to get this song together. But so Sketches of Spain. So this is the chart that he so diligently put together, and you could see different time changes and a lot of adjustments and things like that. So this is this piece, right, that you're going to hear. And I got to say, Tamir, this was a real pleasure for me and Evelyn talking about sensitivity. You'll hear so much of that in this piece. And we rarely do, we really rarely do kind of ballads and slower pieces. This is such an incredible, soulful piece that goes in a lot of different directions. A Sketches of Spain excerpt, tribute to Miles. So is there anything else you want to say about this, Tamir, before we check it out?
And let's just enjoy your beautiful playing and take it from there. Go ahead.
Thank you for the time signatures. I appreciate that. It's great. All right, here it is. Check it out. Tamir, and that was fun.
Man, sure was.
So, yes,
I-
Lauren.
Sketches of Spain is a suite of many different pieces. So, which particular one I kind of recognize that not Phrygian, but that kind of flat thing sound. What piece is that a variation of?
Tamir?
Yeah, that's the first movement of the whole thing, which is the beginning of Concerto de Aranjuez.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah. Okay, I have one more question for you, just away from the video, but I'm wondering if you could help me understand in jazz education about maybe 25 years ago or so, or 1990. That's 30 years ago. There was like an explosion of young Israeli jazz musicians. Like there hadn't been any for a long time in New York. And then all of a sudden they started showing up, the New School and Rafi Malkiel and just all these people. And I knew that Arnie Lawrence, who used to teach at the New School, went over to Israel sometime, I guess, in the 80s or 90s. And I don't know if we have time for it, but I just left it. How did that happen? How did we go from 0 to 100 so quick?
That's the same story that I heard, that he went to Israel and he brought musicians. And so there's also a collaboration between Berkeley and another school in Israel. And you go to Israel and you go to a high school that has a good jazz program, and it'll just scare you. The level is so high and people are so hungry.
Yeah.
There's a great jazz club there that they just had a fundraiser for because of everything that's going on. And I got to go there a few months ago, and it's like a tiny little place, and people are playing at such a high level. And yeah, and most people go to New York, right? We went to LA, just my family had some friends here, but it's been great to connect with some of the great musicians, Anat Cohen and her brothers, and it's like a big family too.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you, Tamir. That was a lot of fun, and I'm excited to debut this next song, this Walkin' tribute to Miles. Let's see. So yes, that song, that was actually the first time I've ever played that. I've listened to it so many times, and it's so funny. You hear all different kinds of recordings. Of course, the original orchestration of it, of the concerto, of that excerpt, and so many different artists from around the world. And I remember my wife is from Lebanon. I remember when I was in Lebanon a few months back, and I heard, Feiruz, one of my favorite, vocalists from there, and she has a song called Li Beirut, and it's the same melody. She actually took that same melody and put some beautiful, the beautiful lyrics with it. So it's nice to hear kind of across different cultures and different generations, like great songs like this, and then you go back and listen to the Miles version, and it's so incredibly special. So it's beautiful. I think it's an example of just how music really bridges cultures from all around the world. Man, that's beautiful. So let's see. So now this next song, Walkin', right, Tamir? And you played your version. I said, man, I don't know what I'm going to do here. I got to start practicing. It's going to take a couple weeks to get it together. It's burning. And this is why did you pick this one?
I mean, it's just a classic Miles tune, simple blues, and I figured if we're going to do a concerto, let's put a little blues in there. We have a little contrast.
All right. Simple enough. Great. So this is our next collaboration of the great Miles Davis, tribute to him, Walkin'.
Walking
Right. Yeah, Tamir. That was a blast. And we're going to take a few moments, just about 2 minutes, and we're going to have the after hours Q&A with Tamir. And thank you for all the questions across Zoom and YouTube. We'll get to a lot of those in a moment. I want to thank you, Tamir, and Ella and Lauren and Evelyn, and everyone for joining us this evening. It's been a great time. We appreciate it. Appreciate your time. And by the way, every Saturday, check out Tamir. He does an incredible at-home concert Saturday night. So just go to your website, Tamir, to check that out. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And some people are asking about another album and collaborations. We'll get to that in a moment. We're going to take a brief pause. But again, thank you to all of our sponsors, including Tri-C Jazz Fest and the countless others who have helped to make this possible. And most importantly, thank you to all of you who are tuning in, and for those of you who have supported this series. Ultimately, this series is going to be sustainable based on your contributions. It's a real collective effort between the sponsorship and helping to expose this to a wider audience, and also from your individual contributions. And I see a comment that says this should happen more than once a week, from Nancy. That's funny. I think Emmett might be laughing right now. We're actually taking next week off. We've done 15 shows since April 1st, and it's been an insane amount of work. We've loved every moment of it, but now we're going to be stepping it up a few levels. We're going to take 1 week off, and then we're going to come back with a lot of really special announcements as we continually adjust to as the world is adjusting here. So we hope you stay tuned. Please join us for the after hours Q&A, and also thank you very much to Emmett Murphy, our director, and Robert Bulliger for your work on this series. I'm Dominic Farinacci, and this is Songbook Watch Party. We'll see you in 2 minutes. Thank you. All right, good. Thank you for joining us for the after hours talk back. Thank you to Valerie. Any chance of getting a DVD of all of these collaborations? Well, I don't even know how to make a DVD, but I don't have a DVD player. But thank you for that. Most likely not on DVD, but we're working on to rebroadcast some of these episodes. We're still working through all the logistics of that, but we have archived all of them. We have to just kind of figure out all the details that go into rebroadcasting those. So stay tuned. That's part of the bigger news. And Ella, I have a question. I saw a cute, adorable dog there. I'm just curious what's happening. And I ask because there's a dog next door that I've never met that always barks in the middle of the broadcast and whenever I'm practicing, whenever I'm recording and all that. It hates me, but I actually saw it from a distance. It's so cute, but we never got a chance to actually meet. But
Well, this is Coco. She's hungry.
Okay.
She's a little sick today, and she's just whenever she sees me on a Zoom call, and she see me talking with people, she gets a little jealous. So she asked me to have her here, so she's like protecting me.
Aw. Okay. That's really sweet. So, Ella, I didn't get a chance to ask you before. I know we covered it kind of in a general sense, but what's the next project that you have coming up? What are you working on these days?
Well, that's a great question. Right now, I'm releasing a conceptual album that is honoring my journey as an immigrant when I moved. I had a list of a bunch of songs that I wrote in the process of adapting to the States. And after the 2 years, I keep writing about the experience of missing home and missing my loved ones. And that's the record that I'm working on right now. It's kind of like a mix of everything, but it pretty much is rooted in soul music, R&B, and jazz,
Okay.
and in Spanish.
Great, great, great. All right. Well, that's very exciting. Looking forward to checking all of that out. Thank you.
Yes, yes.
And Evelyn, you there?
Yeah, here I am.
Yes.
Yes.
So I'm curious because listening to Linda talk and how interwoven her music is with the current day, and I know that's what jazz is about as well. As we are here in Cleveland, I look out my window and see all of these protests happening in the current
Yeah.
environment. What's happening today? I'm just curious,
Oh,
what does music, mean to you in the context of what's happening today?
oh my gosh. It's my medicine. It's my muse. But there was a song that was written back in the 50s from Lauren might can help me with this, from the play, I believe, South Pacific. And it's called You've Got to Be Carefully Taught.
Oh,
And it,
yes.
All right.
oh, yes. So it talks about how, you can come in this world, but you have to be taught a certain way to treat people and how to react to people and hate people. And hopefully we want to love one another. But the music seems to be a force that brings us together. Somehow I've been in situations where I've had all cultures and people come together and get along. But after that, sometimes I don't understand it. I don't know where this hatred comes from. How does it fester? So yeah, but the music is powerful. Yeah.
Well, that was kind of an amazing moment in American popular music
Okay.
where, Rodgers and Hammerstein
Okay.
wrote this
That's it.
song,
Right.
You have to be carefully taught to hate.
Yeah.
And, you just think of kids, all kids are basically the same up until a certain point
There you.
where various things kick in. And, uh, yeah, words fail really beyond that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I'm so glad you
Thanks.
mentioned that.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Well, it's great to see so many wonderful artists across all different genres of music and the music that they bring to our culture and how interwoven that is with current events. And yes, that's certainly one of the beautiful things about our artistic world is to see
Yeah.
that melting pot of cultures and people of all different walks of life, and have to hope that makes a substantial difference, as it has in many ways over the years, but we have a long way to go. And great. So thank you. Sorry. Let's see. So I have Tamir, on a lighter note, they're asking when your next album is coming out. What's happening?
Yeah, I mean, I
And I
haven't.
didn't get a call yet for it, so I wouldn't know.
I think that would be a great thing. Right now, the last couple of months, I've just been kind of adjusting to the new way, and mostly been focused on doing these weekly solo concerts and just taking inspiration from a lot of different musicians, pianists, composers, and that's kind of a way for me to connect back with some of the influences that I grew up with, whether it's folks like Chick Corea or Cole Porter, things that I think you came to one of those, and I think in a way maybe doing these concerts is going to help me figure out what I want to put together in the next album.
Great. Do you have a timeline for that? I know all of our timelines are kind of.
I'm going to just, see what happens and kind of let it breathe. But I'll let everybody know when it's time, for sure.
All right. All right. That sounds good. And yes, so Joyce on YouTube, yes, you and Tamir sound great together. I hope you will play more together. Yes, Joyce, thank you. I hope so too. Tamir, and after collaborating on this, this Miles piece, just reminds me of, talking about that sensitivity and the patience and and then just the voicings and the orchestral nature you get from the piano and the beautiful touch and all that, and how as a trumpet player, a vocalist through our horn, how comforting that is to have that kind of beautiful, lush setting to work with. So thank you.
Well, that beautiful interchange that you had with Ella was really inspiring. I love getting to know your music more, Ella. Thank you so much.
Yes, great.
It was my pleasure, and to hear you, Tamir. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait to work with both of you. It sounded wonderful. That version of Spain, oh my God. Sketches of Spain, wow.
I'm going to improve on that. Yes, that's a milestone of a piece to get to. Hey, Lauren, I have a question. Because obviously all of us on this production had mentors and on and off the bandstand growing up and playing this music, and we know how important music education is, helping to develop musicians and also just to develop, well-rounded human beings, even if they don't go into music. I'm just curious, for the years I know you've been teaching at Juilliard since I went there in 2001. So I'm curious, how does the future of jazz education, how has it kind of evolved over the years?
Well, I got into it really kind of strange. Speaking of vocalists, I was working with a wonderful singer named Sylvia Sims many years ago. And Fred Hirsch and Steve Laspina and I were the trio that backed Sylvia. And this was in the days in jazz education where you could start teaching. Fred asked me to sub for him at a class at the New School. And I'm a dropout. I left college to go work with Benny Goodman many years ago. And you could still get into teaching based on your professional qualifications. Now it's evolved into a point where I guess you have to have two PhDs, to even be considered to teach some basic course. Well, that's a long way of saying that there's been a wonderful change in recent years, I think, where they're getting away from the academic thing. And I know at the Juilliard program, and also at the New School, where you had people like Reggie Workman and Arnie Lawrence and Charlie Persip and so many others. The faculty at Juilliard really is kind of different than most faculties. I mean, even in terms of profiles of what demographic profiles and racial profiles and cultural profiles. And it's a much more inclusive place. And I know that Wynton Marsalis has really made it his mission to somehow make the program there reflect more maybe of the reality of something. I mean, this is getting into some deep water here. But basically what I love about these you're all younger than me, these wonderful artists here, and all the ones that you've had, is that these are people who, they may have gone to a jazz school or they may have done something like that, but they've all come up in the music scene of actually playing. And I'm really kind of rambling here, but just to come to some kind of conclusion, the people you've had in your last 15 weeks, when I think of those orchestral players you had from Doha playing, right? And then you had some wonderful folks, you had some wonderful folks just right down the block from where you are in Cleveland, intensely local to you, intensely international, and just today's broadcast, you know what I mean, with your guests today. I mean, I think this broadcast is a great reflection of the kind of education that people need are these kind of artists, because every artist you've had seems to be making a change somehow in what they're doing. It's not just playing music for music's sake, and it's very inspiring. And also, you're too modest to say it, but I think everyone owes you a huge debt, because the impetus behind this whole series, which you've not talked about recently, maybe you're too busy with doing all the great music, I guess, is that to try and establish a way for musicians to find a livelihood and to find a way to support themselves over the next years or however long it's going to take until things get back to normal. And I'd like to urge everyone who's listening now, and I'll put myself in your category, people who love to listen to great musicians play, people who love to listen to YouTube or go to the various websites and listen to things and look at great pictures and get deep into it. It's time for every single person to, frankly, put your money where your mouth is, or put your money where your ears are. And regardless of your financial situation, everybody somehow can find $1 a day to support any one of these musicians or any one of these causes. $1 a day. Let me do the math here. Let me get out my abacus. Okay, it's roughly $365 a year, right? You should be able to put that aside and help somebody, not help yourself, and be a positive, non-passive member of the music community. Things have become so passive with the way that media has gone, with all these various things where we all enjoy music and do things with music without ever paying for it. And it's a shanda. That's one word, but it's a real shame. So not to get too heavy about it, but that's really how I feel about it. So end
Yeah.
of speech. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. I know, and as artists, I think we all kind of think about that side of it last, right? Because so passionate about what we do, we spend so much time trying to refine what we do and trying to give the best possible presentation for what we do. And I know that the online thing is kind of a blessing and a curse, right? So it's great, for visibility in terms of having your content that you spend hours and months and years working on available for free. But I know that support piece, it comes in different ways, and I know there's a lot of different income streams that we work to develop as artists. But yeah, certainly that's very important, and that's one dream of this project. We're just getting started now, and even once things get back to normal, whatever normal is, it's a challenge. I mean, I saw a photo of a theater in Germany that for one they took out 100 of every 135 seats in the venue, and so that's really our reality. I know I got a call to reschedule in a 300-seat theater, something that was supposed to happen a couple months back, rescheduled for the end of the year, and they're only doing 80-person capacity. So as a consumer, you have to realize, I mean, I'm sure people do realize, like, your ticket charge helps to, support the actual event, right? So you have like a third or maybe a fourth or maybe a sixth or an eighth of that for the next coming years. And what does that look like? It's a pretty grim situation. But out of it, I know a lot of great positive things are already coming out of it artistically. And some of the most creative things happen during stressful times like this. So, my dream a year from now is that Songbook Watch Party is still going on, and it's looking completely different than what it is right now, because our world will look completely different from what it is right now. But there's so many different levels of how we can develop and continuously engage. But obviously that can't happen if we don't have the right financial support. And the last thing I'll say on that is that I started this series from the beginning with the red line kind of onset, saying everybody involved in the series needs to be compensated. And even at the beginning and throughout, even if it's a modest compensation, it's still important to instill that value into the DNA of this series, because that's really what it's about. It's a lot of fun for us, and it also takes collectively probably 45 hours a week to put on an hour-and-a-half show, and we do our best to do it well for you. And so, so all that is important. Thank you for mentioning that. We can go on and on and on and on.
You owe me $5. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Did you contribute yet, Lauren, by the way? All right. Mute. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I know we need to wrap up here, and I think probably every artist on this stream has something very passionate to say along those lines. So I feel bad. Lauren and I are the only ones who've talked, and I know we got to wrap up, but would anybody else like to contribute to that?
I mean, I just want to say that the fact that you have a community here of people that are passionate about the music and keeping it going. And Lauren, it's great to see what you have to say about it. I think I read you say some things like that on Facebook the other day. This whole jazz community, it's like a big family, you know, and whether it's all the folks in New York who have been especially hard hit, or people around the world that are creating music, I think it's really good to support it and for us to figure out ways to connect with each other and keep the creative spark going during this time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And ultimately, you know, we're grateful for everyone who has supported it. We're finding that, I mean, people who really love this music tune in, I mean, they support, and that's wonderful. That's great. It's actually pretty easy on a lot of levels. So this is great. We're just getting things moving here.
Yes, I feel like when the COVID-19 started, it took us by surprise of many of us. The first thing to happen to a freelancer when all your concerts are canceled, all your tours, is what are the organizations that you need to look out in order to seek for financial support. And there are very few organizations that are actually supporting musicians. And this is an issue that it needs to be addressed. And if you want to be part of that, you know, do your research, educate yourself, and keep supporting musicians, because this is a critical time for music. It's not going to be the same for at least, it's almost like a year lost. And a year lost for a freelancer is critical. So we need your support more than ever.
Great.
And
Yes,
and
Evelyn?
also, yeah, I like to say I want to thank Tamir and Ella for I'm sharing the stage with them. They're two humble, wonderful musicians, and this is the kind of environment I like to be around. I like to be around musicians like that are humble and giving to us in the world, and we need more of that. Lauren, also too, I love you. Dom, I love you. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you, Evelyn. Well, I appreciate everyone's time, and thank you to all of you who are tuning in. We are going to take next week off, and then we're back at it, whatever that next Sunday is. So a lot of great updates, and we thank you for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you again. Please visit www. You don't have to type www anymore. SONGBOOKWATCHPARTY.com. Please check out all the artists individually. They got great things going on. And we look forward to, thank you, Nancy, thank you. We look forward to seeing you again very soon, in 2 weeks from today. I'm Dominic Farinacci, and this is Songbook Watch Party. Thank you.